Hello, I'm Kenneth, and this is Common Hawthorne. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I am going to do the first of what I think will be a series of videos prompted by a panel discussion organized by Queen Osset at Oya's Girl on September 6th, 2020. And the video is on YouTube, and I will link below. It's called An Open Dialogue to Bring Healing to the Tarot Community. And it was largely shaped around race and the depiction, the role, the presence of Black readers and creators and images in tarot, and what cultures are reflected in tarot. And it raised a number of questions on its own, but it also raised questions for me when I think about inclusion or diversity in my tarot decks. And I'm still developing thoughts about those questions, what to ask of decks or ask of myself. But one of the things that happened in the roundtable is that Larissa of the Bard's Lament encouraged people who were doing walkthroughs or who were tarot tubers to share or teach about their culture. And that in part is what prompted my last video, kind of positioning myself according to like my taglines. And so I'm going to take a deck and I'm going to go through some particular cards that raise issues for me in general and look at how those cards play out in different decks. And so today I'm going to look at the Sasuraibito. And first, the cards that I'm going to look at are the Lovers. So they're white. Okay, I'm white. It's a heterosexual pair. I'm decidedly not heterosexual. They're able-bodied, they're slender, they're young. The Devil, again, heterosexual, or they're not so much a pair, but it's definitely revealing a gender binary. Two of Cups, there we go, the male and female. The Ten of Cups, which it's not just that it's a heterosexual family, it's that it's a family is shown as like the paragon of emotional maturity, and as a person who is somewhere between voluntarily and involuntarily single and living alone, well, I have to question that. Four of Wands, again, often interpreted as preparation for a presumably heterosexual wedding. Ten of Pentacles, well, at least it's not the nuclear family. There's this old man, but it's still showing family life as a culmination. And the Six of Swords with the rather heteronormative family going off somewhere. So that's all those are the Smith-Waite Centennial Edition. So these are Pamela Coleman Smith's drawings. So for Sasuraibito, which is a deck I love, I just adore this deck. So here's the Lovers. It's really indeterminate who these people are, or if they're even people, I suppose. So it's definitely a pairing, and it's one that I can see myself in should I choose to. And that feels important to me. The Devil. This card is actually quite literally why I bought this deck, because this is one sexy, handsome devil. And so I count that as seeing myself in the deck. That this card about desire actually has an image of person or an entity that I can see myself desiring. Of course, this would be very different for other people who don't happen to find sexy, scary men attractive. But there you go. Two of Cups. Like many of the cards in this deck, there are people who aren't shown in their entirety that I tend to gender as female. But, you know, here's a Two of Cups that's, I mean, these hands are not actually gendered. And what they are doing is more an image for me of friendship than of like romantic love with, you know, the two people with the cups approaching one another. And so it's much easier to see myself in this dynamic. Ten of Cups doesn't have a family at all. Hooray, it's out camping. Any of us could be out there camping together and showing the fullness of our emotional connections to one another. Four of Wands, again, it's emphasizing stability rather than the being a framework for coupledness. So I really like that. Ten of Pentacles, it's cooperation, and it's, you know, it's a group. It's the people and it's the dog. I read it as a man and a woman, but there's something about this where it's not just like a celebration of family life that I really appreciate. And the Six of Swords. This person is keeping her own, she's keeping her head above water on her own. She's not depending on some guy to paddle her away. This speaks to me about adversity and overcoming it as an individual, and the strength to maintain. So there are some other cards in this deck that I'm going to share because they're part of what make me just delighted about the deck, which include various ways that I can see myself that I often don't in tarot decks. And so there's the Fool. So I'll note that unlike, I think, any other deck that I currently own, many, if not most, of the people in this deck are somewhere between ambiguous in race or Asian. There aren't any dark-skinned people in the deck. I guess the devil is kind of dark-skinned, but I actually see that more as a lighting choice by the artist. But anyway, here's this old guy, and he's old, and there he is, naked, with his big beard, dancing. So I love that. And then the King and the Queen of Cups are just like, one, don't you want both of them to just like wrap you in their arms and offer you a cup of tea and sit down for a nice conversation? But it's nice to have more older people, which I am. Hierophant, which I like because to me, religion doesn't have an inherently negative connotation, largely because of my own experiences as a Quaker. I mean, culturally, as a gay man in America, religion, I tend to think religion is actually not my friend and very destructive. But personally, my own personal experience is that religion has been very rich for me. And so it's nice to have somebody who's so clearly identifiable as religious and yet from a culture that is not mine, and so he's not the buttons that I do have to be pushed. He's not really pushing them. I like that the Emperor is very contemporary. There's a variety in this deck of kind of timeless to contemporary images. It's mostly tends towards impressionistic, but it's nice to see the Emperor as a businessman. But it's not like he's not wearing a tie. There's just something about this that I really identify with, and I don't usually identify with the Emperor card. So I like that. And the world, there are some people who are not thin in this deck, but she's the most zaftig, and I like that quite a lot. So some of the questions, I'll just run down some of the questions that I'm kind of mulling over for this whole idea of inclusivity and diversity in decks. Do I see myself in the deck? And do I need to see myself in the deck? During the panel, let's see, who was it? Oh, it was Larissa again, who brought up the skill of marginalized communities to see ourselves when we aren't depicted. And she used the example, if you're Black and you want to read mystery novels, you're going to have to reconcile yourself to reading books by and about largely white people. And as a gay man, it's like there's lots of romantic there are like films or books that I do interpret as romantic, even though the people in the romance are a heterosexual couple, and yet there's a way to project myself into that sometimes, but not always. So I do see myself in the Sasuraibito in terms of age, body shape, an appeal to my gay sensibilities, and kind of removing the family and heterosexual couple-based images kind of opens a doorway for me to enter into the deck. Does this deck look like the world around me? And at what scale? Where I live or the world? And does that answer actually say more about the deck or about how I'm situated? And I haven't gotten far enough in my thinking to have developed some answers about this deck in particular. I think this to me is a more broad question that maybe I'll return to after I've done a few of these. Does this deck look like I'd like the world to look? And in many ways, yes, it's joyful, yet it acknowledges sorrow and pain. It depicts self-reliance and also collaboration and cooperation and support. It has happy old people, not just, sad, discarded old people. So yeah, I think I would be really delighted. There are ways, as I said, that this deck does not actually depict a racial variety that is anything like what I grew up with in Southern California or even where I live. Does this deck contribute to the diversity of tarot as a whole? And that's another one where I don't really know if I can answer that, because I don't know enough about kind of like tarot as a whole. Definitely the fact that it is not European, people of European extraction for the most part, and the range in ages, I think, do stand out in my experience. And then Shaniqua, of what Shanique was into, and the panel said, is this deck needed? You know, there are abstract questions of like, well, is it wrong to do a deck that is X, Y, or Z? But kind of within that whole idea of the ecosystem of tarot, is this deck needed? And based on its popularity, I think that the way that the Sasuraibito Tarot, you know, the people that I've seen videos, you know, it's really these two. I mean, they, for me, really encapsulate what this tarot deck does. And I think the world can use as much loving kindness as it can possibly get. So I would say, yes, this is a deck that's needed. So that's it for today. Once again, I'm Kenneth. This is Common Hawthorne. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd care to. And I hope that you return again. Bye.